Hi everyone, hope you can hear me, see me. Um, Rather new to this game, but hopefully. Hi everyone, hope you can see me, hear me. Um, Last time I did a live video, which was about 3 weeks ago, it was the first live video I'd ever done, and I have to admit I was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights because I just did not know what was going on. This time I hope to be a little bit better organised. So I'm here, it's 8 o'clock. I can see there's some people already there, so thank you so much for joining me. The reason I wanted to do this live video was because I've had some fabulous clients recently, and there seems to be common questions about my work, and I thought it would be just nice to put all the information together in one place so people can refer to it and hopefully explain some stuff to you about what I do and how it works. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to see some comments, because if you have any questions, really happy to answer them as we go along, but as I said, I'm a bit new on this game, so I'm just having a look to see if I can see where all the comments are. Bear with me. Yay, I can see comments. Hi, Ellie, Pam. Brilliant. Thank you for being there. Okay, let's start. So the first thing I wanted to say is the information I'm going to speak about now is my information as I know it at this moment, okay? That doesn't mean to say I might not change my mind if new information comes to me. So I'm not attached to this information that this is the only way. And my work has evolved over the past, well, it's 19 years now, and I suspect it will keep evolving. So this is sort of the information that I have, that I feel at this moment. But that doesn't mean to say it's the right information for you. That I'm quite understand that you might think, oh, don't really agree with that, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. It's where I stand at the moment. And I think my scientific background gives me a skepticism, which I'm really grateful for, because it means that I don't actually dive straight in. When I hear something good, it's like, oh, brilliant, whoa, let's go. I do step back and think about it. And that's part of my journey, and anything you're learning is part of your journey. But as I said, I'm just presenting this information, and you take it or leave it. And it may be that it doesn't seem relevant now, but a week, a month, a year, 10 years later, you might think, oh, that's what she said then. That's absolutely fine, okay? And I know that my view on things has changed. As I've gained more information, I get more clarity, and I think that's what this is about in some ways. This video is to say where I'm at the moment, so people know. And I know there was one situation I had where I learnt about having to make your own mind up, and that was when I'd done the 3rd level of Reiki. I took about 18 months to do the 3 levels, and I'm sure it was after the 3rd one I went into a supermarket to do some shopping, and it was horrendous. It was, the lights were affecting me. I felt really ill. So I came out and I rang my Reiki master up, who I'd done the level with, and she gave me a sort of an explanation as why she felt I wasn't feeling well and whatever. I can't even remember what she said now, but I thought, okay, fair enough. And then I also found another person I knew who did some amazing healing work with horses. Phoned him up, and he said something completely different. And I remember I stood there thinking, oh, I was really hoping someone would give me a definitive answer, but I had 2 conflicting answers almost. And so I thought, okay, and I can remember actually thinking this, I've got to make my own mind up. I've got to find out for myself. It was a really good lesson that was where I was coming from and what I had to do. So that's the sort of the way I want to start, is to say, okay, this is where I'm at. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Take it on board, leave it, whatever. I'm, no offence taken. And as I said, I'm really happy to answer any questions. Now, the next thing, now I keep looking over here because I have notes. I missed them last time, and I don't. My memory was such, and I was, as I said, like a rabbit in the headlights, going, "Oh God, what do I say next?" So I'm trying to be a bit more composed this time. So the next thing I want to say is terminology. I do energy work, and I call it zapping, because it's just so much easier than saying a session of point of balance or using the energy. So when I say zap, what I'm saying is what I'm doing. So that's just to clarify that bit. So the other thing I found is that along my journey, I have encountered books that I've read before, and now, because I've learnt so much more, they mean something completely different. They have much deeper meaning. So I've read The Power of Now last year, and that blew my brain. And I remember reading it before and being sort of quite impressed, but not really understanding. And so now, further down the journey, that's had a great significance. And the other book that I've just refound is Gary Zukav's Seat of the Soul. And I looked on Amazon to try and find, because I couldn't find, I knew I'd read it, but I couldn't find the book. So I went and I bought the Audible edition, and it showed that I bought that book in 2005. That's how long ago I read it. I can't remember it much then, but reading it now, it's like, oh my God, I really get this. So again, I'm just trying to show that you evolve as you go down the journey, and the different things mean different things can mean different things to you as you progress. So that was just about that. So what is the point of balance? Well, for me, it's the sum of everything I've learnt and everything I am. And I've, as I said, I've been through various energy modalities, and I became practitioner of this and a practitioner of that. And it got to a stage in about 2015 when it just didn't start to fit. And so I thought, okay, I'm actually going to be me. I'm going to step into being me and accept that I can be me doing this work without a title. So that's where the point of balance was the thing that really got me, because it seems that when every system comes into balance, that's when you're going to have health. And my work was about helping any system come back to their own unique point of balance. So I've got, farmer's wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I've got a horse, teach computers, oh goodness, what else do I do? But whatever. Everything has added to where I am now, and everything has been pertinent. So that's why I stepped into point of balance, and I did that about 3 or 4 years ago, and here I am now. So it was then a case of, well, what am I actually doing? And I remember it was 2017. I went to Scotland and had the joy of staying with Tanya, with Naomi, and I went up to stay with Tanya. And I worked with Tanya's horses up there. And she said to me, well, what are you doing? And I think, oh God, here, I'll try and explain. So it was a sort of a long, convoluted conversation, which I think I probably lost poor Tanya halfway through. And then, anyway, we had a wonderful time. And then just before I left, Tanya said to me, try and distill what you do down into 4 words. And I remember looking at her going, you've got to be kidding. And even she burst out laughing, said, all right, I'll give you 6. And I thought, oh, cheers, Tanya, that's a great bloody help. But anyway, so that was my sort of challenge. And on the way home, it came to me in 4 words. And the 4 words were, helping you heal yourself. So straight away, it's not a case of me deciding what the person or the horse needs. It's me helping them heal themselves, which is a slightly different thing. So that became the basis of how I looked at my work, helping you heal yourself. And then this year, I've had more clarity. Some of you might have read or listen to a video I put up, but December the 31st, massive opening, more information came to me, which for me was a direct result that I had a treatment with a lady called Heather Drummond, and that just gave me clarity. It just set me on the path. And so December the 31st, I got this massive insight into what it was I was about. And it wasn't the words that came to me. It's not what I can do for you, but it's about enlightening you and letting you become aware of the power and give you the realization of what you can do to help yourself, because that's what I'm all about, is showing people, empowering them, showing them how they can help themselves, not only to heal themselves, but also to find their path, how much information is out there that they can connect to help them wherever they are, whatever they're doing. And that's what I feel my journey is about and what my work is about. So it's really, there's two words that come to me when I think about my work, and that's energy and connection. So the first bit, looking at the energy, we are energy. If you Google, what's the word? How much matter? I can't remember the terminology you'd use, but how much space there is in your body. We are 99.999999% space. Okay, because the atoms are all space and they have a cloud of electrons whooshing around them, and it's the cloud of electrons that actually determine the solidity or not of a substance. But that's all, it's way beyond me, and I'm certainly not going to try and go into it. But we are space, we are energy, we're vibration, we're frequency. So that's what I work with when I'm doing my sessions, is the energy of the system, be it a person or a horse or a dog or whatever. That's what I'm working with. So it's I always say that my hand is solid, the table's solid. If I wanted to put my hand through the table, I just have to change my energy, change my vibration. Actually what it's to do about, I have dug a little bit into it, is the field of electrons, and that two electrons can't occupy the same energetic state. And so that's where the feel of pressure when you put your hand on a table is the fact that the field of the electrons of the table are resisting the field of your fingers, and so you can't actually put them through in this energetic state. I believe that if you could change your energetic state, you could. But that's a whole nother story, and we won't go there today. So that's the sort of energetic side of it, is I think we're all energy, and what I work with is energy in the form of light and frequency and vibration. So then we look at connection. Now for me, connection is all about having no barriers. Because we're pure energy, there isn't that physical boundary. We're not made of stuff that this is this stuff, that's that stuff. It's just an energetic field. And if you read about the universe in general, but you hear the words of the field, which is the connecting part that connects us all. We sit in the field, and the field contains information. So part of my work, I feel, is about enabling whoever I'm working with, whatever I'm working with, the horse, dog, whatever, to connect to that field and gain the information they need to heal themselves. That's the sort of the way I look at it. So you can't destroy energy. Our thoughts are energy, and all of that information is sitting there waiting. All of the possibilities, the quantum possibilities, are out there. So I know that the quantum physicists get really annoyed when woo-woo starts using the words quantum energy, quantum mechanics. But I really get confused at that, because what they're talking about is something beyond the sort of Newtonian physics that we've been taught, the very solid physics. And basically that's where I'm going. That's what I think this is about. And not only what I do, but homeopathy, even acupuncture, acupressure, it's all about energy being used at certain points. It's not about putting a biochemical or a physical product into a body to try and change the biochemistry. And even when you go there, there's more and more research that's showing now it's the electromagnetic field of the substance that you put in your body that affects the body. It's not the physical stuff, if you get my meaning. And if you think that physical stuff is just space as much as we're just space. So I'm hoping, my hope is that medicine in general will start looking beyond the physical, take the tablet, and start realizing what the difference is, that we're looking at the electromagnetic frequencies that tablet possesses and what that effect has on the field, on the body, on the system you're working with. And so that's where I'm working, is from the electromagnetic field into the field to affect the system that I'm with. So how does it work? I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but I believe balance is the place where everybody is at health. So you have physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual balance. And if we're in balance at all of those levels, then the body is healthy. Now, we can get knocked out of balance, obviously by trauma or accident, physical injury, by picking a bug up. But then immediately I go to, well, why did that person pick the bug up and then the person next door didn't? And then you look at, is there something within their energetic field that is out of balance, which means that their immune system is depressed? Now, obviously, one of the biggest ways of putting the body out of balance is stress. And I think we all know, especially at the moment in the world with COVID and everything, there's like a subliminal, I'll get it right, stress all the time, especially at the moment. But for me, every time you switch the news on, it's always bad news. Even when we haven't got COVID and even when the sun's shining and whatever, all we get told is stress, because it's all the bad news from all the way around the world. And for years, I've honestly wondered, why do they do that? Why don't they give us good news? And I understand that, if something's going to affect us, be aware this might happen or that might happen. But when they sort of tell us something about the other side of the world, which we actually physically cannot do anything about, it's just another stressor laid on top of us. And I just think we in the Western civilization in particular, with all of our access to information at every moment, through the internet, through TV, radio, whatever, we're bombarded. And it's sort of no surprise that I think there are so many chronic illnesses around there, out and about. And I mean, that's beside all the stresses we may have in our life with relationship and money and jobs and everything else and kids and, future. And it's just no surprise to me about the state of how many, as I said, chronic illnesses there are. You can have the acute illnesses, but as I said, even then I'm questioning, well, why is their immune system depressed? So they've picked the bug up and those people haven't. What's the difference? So my job is about helping to bring that system into balance, to negate the stress. And a lot of people will say to me, how can you help somebody when you don't know what's wrong with them? And it's a totally legitimate question. I've had that asked, well, yeah, I'm really interested, but how can you help me when the doctors don't know what's wrong with me? How the hell do you know? I don't know. The fact is their system does. And although their system may not be able to give them an absolute diagnosis and say, oh, it's this, this, or this, the system knows it's out of balance. And it wants to return to balance. In a physiological terminology, you'd call it homeostasis. That's the place where the organism and all the mechanisms within it are coming into the most appropriate place to be in balance. So what I'm about is helping that system find its way back to balance. Now, in any moment in time, if you imagine a line which at one end you're in complete fight or flight, protection, stress, and then you travel along the line, and at the other end that's growth or repair, where your autonomic nervous system is completely quiet. You know, you've got the sympathetic, this would be when you're at your fight or flight, and your parasympathetic when you're calm, and repair and protection, repair and growth. Every moment of every day we're somewhere along this line, depending on what's happening. And obviously the ideal place is to be in the calm place of growth. And again, that's what I'm about, is trying to help the system go back there in any which way it can. And it knows where to go. But the problem is, again, we have patterns within us which we tend to repeat and go to. And quite often they've come from childhood. And it can be a learnt pattern because a parent behaves in a certain manner, and you know, when 0 to 5 you've got no point of comparison. So that your mother survived, just take your mother for example, your mother survived being in that pattern, it might be an anxious person, it might be an angry person, whatever, and so you tend to copy, because why wouldn't you copy a pattern which obviously your mother's surviving with? And then the other thing can be where you pick a pattern up by something that happened in your childhood, and then that follows you through life. And I think it's called transference, where it's a pattern that was appropriate in childhood but not to be taken on board and used as a reaction in an adult life. And I'll give you an example of my pattern that literally I only really discovered about 10 years ago. And that was, my brother was nearly 5 years older than me. And so for 1 year, we were both in the same primary school. He was exceptionally intelligent, always getting into trouble, but he was bored, I think. And so one day he decided, and it was sort of towards the end of his time at the school, he wanted to play truant, you know, bunk off school. But he couldn't let me go to school because everybody would be questioning me, why aren't you at school? You know, where's your brother? Why isn't he here? And I wouldn't, you know, 5-year-old, I couldn't think of a cover story, I can tell you. So he said, you've got to come with me. And I did not want to go. I loved school. I loved learning. And I was also a good little girl. And don't want to do that. But anyway, we played truant. And so after about the 3rd day, he hadn't worked this one out, of not being there. Of course, the school rang. Our parents said, where are they? They said they should have gone to school. And we had a big open space near us in London called Barn Hill. I lived in the suburbs of North London. And needless to say, that's where we were. And my dad went looking. And the moment that sticks in my brain and has been a driver, a pattern for me right up till, as I said, about 10 years ago, is that moment where there was a pond and we were on one side of it and he appeared over the hill on the other side. That was the moment. It was like, oh my God, been found. I'm a bad person. I shouldn't have done this, even though I never got blamed for anything. And I honestly can't remember past that moment. I don't know what got said. I don't know what got done. It's that moment sticks in my mind. And then one further moment to do with the same scenario was when I went back to school. And of course, I'd been the good little girl before and always doing everything. And one of the teachers was sort of cross-questioning me about what did you do and where did you go? And then she looked at another teacher and she said, and I always thought you were a good little girl. Oh, that really hit home. And I'm absolutely sure that so many of my habits of got to do better, got to be doing, you know, got to be good, got to be seen to be good, come from that actual moment, those two little things. And it's only now that I've managed, to let go of them and go, actually, no, I'm enough as I am without having to try and prove to everybody out there that I'm good. So that's been an underlying pattern that has affected me all my life. And you could say, well, it's not too bad. And I know a lot of people will have a lot worse. But I'm just trying to sort of give you an example of how, without us knowing, effects from childhood can follow us through and knock us out of balance, because that's not the true place. That's not who I really am. that's a pattern that's been imposed on me by myself, but obviously, you know, subliminally, that I didn't mean to do it. It just sort of happened, and that's what I carried with me. So again, that's all of the sort of things that can knock you out of balance. I mean, that's not a definitive list, but it's something, you know, gives you an idea. So it's how can I help you when I don't know what's wrong with you? Now, modern medicine, and total 100% behind modern medicine. You know, I'm not a naysayer in any way, shape or form, and there's billions of people, I would suggest, that have benefited from the wonders of modern medicine at every level and everything. The only thing I'd say is that I think we learn everything for a reason, but it's what we do with it that can sometimes be the problem. I'm looking more at the pharmaceutical companies that tend to go slightly off at a tangent, but I mean that's a whole different story. So from my perspective, and again this is my perspective, the modern medicine tends to take quite a mechanistic approach, in that the emotional side of stuff, of why people get ill, and the energetic side doesn't get addressed. It's all about, you know, process A to process B, something's happening here, here's a tablet, an operation, whatever, to sort that bit out. But the root cause is never really addressed. That is that person so stressed and so emotionally affected by things that that's caused the illness. So my approach is much more about the energetic side of things, trying to bring in a way of balancing out all the energy, the emotions and the thoughts. And as I said, that the work I did with Heather Drummond, I think, has opened up a new side of this work as well, so that when I'm working with people and with horses, I'm sometimes now getting the odd word or sensation in my body that may be appropriate to them to help something. Or sometimes random words come to me and they do have significance to the person, but that's not what I'm about. I'm not an animal communicator, you know, when I'm working with the horses. And at the moment it most certainly isn't the case that is what my work is. My work is purely to help the system get into balance, and this bit is evolving. I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know whether it's going to stay, and I don't know whether it's going to become, you know, really a major part of it. But that, you know, as I said, everything is evolving. So what do I do? My take on what I do is that, first of all, we're working in the field. It's an energetic connection. Now, obviously, if I've got somebody in person, they're with me, they might be sitting or lying, and I'm working. I very, very rarely work hands-on, a horse or a person. It's always hands-off in the field. As soon as I start working, my hands tingle. Don't know, some people say it's to do with the blood flow through it. You know, they've done various studies on people doing Reiki and stuff. I don't know, but that to me is my sort of signal that things have started. So I'm then literally just working in the field with the intention of connecting with the system that I'm working with. It might be a person or it might be a horse. And it's about showing that system where balance is. It doesn't matter. I don't need to know what's happened. It's a case of that system does know where balance is. And I'm not talking about consciously or even subconsciously. It's the whole energetic being knows where balance is. And my job is to help facilitate their move back to balance. Various analogies I've used over the years. One of them is Sky TV. So if you think you have Mr. Jones watching Sky TV, you've got the base station, which over here, which has got all of the stations. That the base station sends all of the stations up to the satellite, and then Mr. Jones decides which channel he's going to watch. In essence, I'm the satellite. My job is to give him all the information and let him make his own mind up. I can't make Mr. Jones, choose a channel. That's not my job. I don't know. Those are three very powerful words. I don't know. He does. So you can look at it in that way, that, you know, I'm the satellite, the facilitator, there's the channels to the system. I'm trying to make sure there's a clear pathway, a clear signal to the person or the horse. There they are. The other way you can look at it is that, say there were 40 books, and each book had one sentence. All these books were 200 or 300 pages long, and in each book there was one sentence that was appropriate, that would help the system find its way back to balance. But you had to read each one of the 40 books in the right order. Now, if I just opened a door and said, right, there's your answer, there's the 40 books, I don't think many people would go there. And well, they wouldn't know what they were looking for, and it might be a bit daunting. But if I've gone in the room, opened all the books up, highlighted the sentence, left the book open, and put them all in the right order, I open the door and the person can see it laid out before them. So that's my job, but it's not my job to push the person into the room. I cannot make anything happen. That's a really important point that I want to make, because if I could help everyone, but I can't. And it has to be what's appropriate for that person or that horse at that moment. And I know the naysayers would say, well, that's the biggest get out there is, that, you know, you're doing that and you can't say it's going to happen. But I then say, well, let's look at the allopathic medicine and look at all the drugs that are available. You can't say that any one drug can make everybody well again. You know, be it a headache or whatever. Some people have side effects, some people it won't affect. If it's appropriate for that person, that system at that moment, it will work. That's exactly what I'm saying. And the problem is that you can never do a control experiment with one system. And each system is individual. So you can't say that, you know, two people might be exhibiting the same symptoms, but they're different people. They've come from different backgrounds, they've had different experiences, they've got different emotions, they've got different stresses, they've got different perception on their life. So even then, if I work with both of them, one might get a result, one might feel better, one might not. And of course then the skeptics will say, well, there you are, it doesn't work. But for me, it's exactly the same in allopathic medicine, that every drug, apart from a list as long as your arm of contraindications that could possibly happen, not to say they will, but they could possibly happen, there's no one drug they can say this will definitely work for you. It might not, and then they'll go looking for another drug. Fair enough. But it's two very different ways of judging things, I feel. But that's just my obviously I'm going to side on step onto the side of the energetic stuff. So for me, then it's the I'm sending energy, light and information to the system. How does it get there? It gets there through the field. Now, I think people can probably accept when I've got somebody lying in front of me, maybe the field, you can understand how I might affect that field. And what you have got to remember is that the magnetic field of our heart can be measured 12, 15 feet away from our body. So it's part of the surroundings. Everybody's field is intermingling together. There's all this information out there that is totally accessible to us through the field. And when I'm working, what I'm doing is what they call conditioning the space. So, well, that's what they think is happening. So it's about making the space, making it easier for the system I'm working with, the horse, the person, to receive the information, to find their way back to balance. A good way of showing this is that if, say, I've been working with a horse in a block of stables, as I said, I very rarely put my hands onto the horse. I'm working away, sometimes 6-8 feet away. And so I'm standing there working away, and you look down the line and say there's 4 other horses. Quite often, all of those horses have gone in this, what I call the zone. And I'm sure other practitioners have seen it. If you see your horse have a cranial treatment or anything like that, is when they go very still, eyes half closed, ears are half masked, lips twitching, and sometimes they do big stretches and things like that. And I just call it buy one get four free, because it's the space I'm working with, and horses, being such energetic creatures, pick it up. And I know I did a distance session not so long ago, and I think the lady had 3, if not 4 horses, and they were all reacting. Even though I was aiming, my intention was on one of the horses. These others were all there really close together, and they picked it up as well, and they were going in the zone as well. So it's about the space and the helping the system access the information it needs to get back into balance. So that's the sort of essence behind what I do. So there's not much well, there are no contraindications. Let me say it quite clearly. There are no contraindications. There's nothing, because I'm not directing, deciding or dictating what the person or the horse needs. I used to scan people and horses, and I'd pick up energy changes, and I'd work where the energy changes was, especially when I did Reiki. And that was wonderful, and got some lovely results. But there was part of me that sometimes wondered, did that energy change, the what you might call a wrong energy, did that actually need to be there at that moment for that part to heal? I didn't know. And again, as I said, it's different practitioners, different ways of working. One's not better than the other. It's a case of what's appropriate and obviously what fits with the practitioner. So for me, people ring me up sometimes and say, so and so, or somebody's animal or whatever is ill, will you work with them? And I do it straight away. And there are some modalities, energetic practices, where they say you've got to ask permission of the person you're going to work with before you do so. Totally correct, and that's fine. But that's when people are scanning and changing things, deciding what needs to change. Because I'm not part of that, in the sense that I'm just going, okay, here's all the frequencies, take what you need, and not saying you need this, this and this. For me, there's no need to ask for permission. And I have worked with some, people have rung me up in a panic about people being really ill, and worked with them straight away, just go. And then, so this sort of, well, before I go on to distance, the only side effect, I will mention it, that has been noted occasionally, is if somebody comes to me with a pain, which is sort of a physical trauma, if it's very acute, just happened, as I'm working with them, it can get worse. And I remember a friend had a horrible fall off a horse, and I was working with her straight away. She literally came straight to me, and by the end of the session, pain was much relieved, and she felt much, much better. But she said in the middle of the session, I was extremely lucky not to get a black eye, because the pain got very intense. And for me, it's kicking in that healing. It's about the change happening, and that's the the pain that's going. And I've had another occasion with a lady who'd had chronic sciatica, and I worked with her, and I didn't see her for a couple of days. And when I did, she said, "Oh, I'm fine." She said, however, the day after I'd worked with her, she could have had a few choice words to say to me, because the pain got worse and then it got better. And in some ways, I think that's when a chronic situation, chronic pain, the body is used to it. And then when it gets worked with energetically, it reminds the system that there's something out of balance. And so that can be the pain sort of kicking in a bit harder. And then, hopefully, and thankfully in her case, it dissipates, and she was absolutely fine. So that's the sort of the energetic side of stuff. And my mindset is one session is all you need, because change can happen faster than the speed of light. So I never call what I do a treatment, because that infers I know what needs to be treated, and I don't. It's a session, and as such, I do one session, and then if somebody wants to come back to me for another session, that's purely their choice. But I don't sort of say, okay, you've got to come to me for 3 sessions. This is going to need. No, faster than the speed of light. And quite often, we need the time. The human condition sometimes means that people can't accept healing is easy. They think it's hard work, and that's no fault on anybody. It's just the culture and the way things are sort of just, you've got to take this for a month and you've got to do that, and that's really hard to get rid of. No, it isn't, as far as I'm concerned. It can happen that quickly. I'm just trying to think of examples. A book you could be interested in. This is not about the speed, but this is about a medical diagnosis of somebody who had cancer and literally was on the verge of dying, and it was grade 4 and it was completely documented. Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me. And there they couldn't explain, and I mean they took the scans and overnight the cancer disappeared, and they still kept giving her treatment as she was willing to do it. But it just shows how change can happen really, really quickly. So that's the sort of where my mindset is, how I work. And then very quickly I'll say about before I go into distance, what happens during a session. This is a sort of a common question before somebody's had a session. So with people, generally I try and do the session towards the end of a day, or when somebody's got a quiet day, because the general report back is people feel really relaxed. A lot of tension goes out of their body, and they, okay, I can sit here. And if they can have benefit of that, it's fantastic. They do not need to be. So I just say to people, if you want the session, just sit, lie down. That's all you need to do. You don't need to concentrate on your breathing, meditate, pray, do anything. You just sit there. A lot of people fall asleep. Fine. It doesn't make any difference. You could be dancing an Irish jig. Doesn't make any difference. But the reason I suggest to people to sit down, lie down, is so they take full benefit of what might be the effect of this relaxation, which is the tension going out of the body, and they can actually breathe deep and settle down. Now, some people report feeling stuff in their body. So it might be tingles, it might be sharp pain here. Some see colours. Other people feel and see nothing. Now, I know categorically both ways are perfect. It's not what people experience during the session that dictates what might happen. That's just, you could say is a side effect, that some people pick the energy up in different ways, other people don't. And it's the same with horses. Some horses, if I'm working in person or distance, they will react and they will relax and stretch and yawn and all the different things. Others carry on grazing, eating their hay net. And this was shown to me really clearly once when I in person did a treatment on a horse some years ago now near me in Aberystwyth here. And the horse was really anxious. It would not settle in its stable, and it was in a big American barn, and every horse that went in and out, it was literally turning itself inside out in its stable, making a big mess, and obviously getting very anxious. Nobody had seen it lie down, and his owner asked me to go and zap him, so I went there. And as I've told many people, I nearly got wiped out by that horse. It did not know I existed in that box. His owner was there with me, and I just had to keep dodging because he was going mad. Horses were going in and out, and that was that. So you'd have thought that horse had taken no notice of me at all or what I was doing, and that it would have had no effect. But I had a phone call the next day to say, overnight, fast asleep, flat out, completely changed in that moment. So that proved to me, that was a really good lesson for me, that it's not what the person or the animal experiences during the session that will dictate the outcome of that person at that time, and it's the appropriate thing. So I've tried, and for years I couldn't get it to happen. I remember one of the first sessions I ever did when I went away to give a sort of a little talk, and it was at a friend's place, and she had an off the track. I don't know if he was off the track, but it was a thoroughbred, and he was a bit anxious. And he was in the round pen, and I started zapping, and he was literally, his legs were buckling. He was completely gone gaga. And a friend who is she does films and she's an artist and all sorts, so she was well versed on camera work. The camera stopped working, and I was like, oh, I really wanted to get that on film. But afterwards I thought, no, until I'm really secure in this work, I think that is what it is. I didn't want to be putting out, oh look, this what's happened, this is what can happen, when I work with your horse, because then if it didn't happen, people would be saying, oh well, that didn't happen, therefore it didn't work. And I think that's why it's more recently, in the last year or so, I have got some lovely reactions, managed to capture some when I've worked with some horses. But I honestly think that was about. So now going on to distance sessions. And quite often the first question I get asked is, how the hell do you know that what you're doing is going to my horse? Legitimate question. The only way I can answer it is intention and working in the field. Because through the field, distance and time doesn't exist. So if I've got a client, say, in Queensland, in Australia, and I honestly don't know where half of my, I know a vague area, and the only reason I know the vague area where they are, i.e. eastern seaboard of the States, or the western or eastern Australia, Western Australia, is so I can work the time difference out. I have no addresses or anything like that. So it's purely intention that I'm thinking of that horse belonging to that person. And quite often I don't even know the name of the horse. I certainly don't have any photos. It's pure intention. And that's all you need, is to say, right, 5 o'clock your time, I'm going to start working. And I have documented on my site, I think I did a little video about it quite some years ago now. A friend of mine was a cranial osteopath. He went out to New Zealand. He was going to go and treat 6 horses for a riding for disabled. I think he was, North Island he was. And he said, let's do an experiment. So I zapped. He'd put his hands on the horse and assess them. So he might think, oh, it's tight round its poll or tight right leg, whatever. Step back. I'd zap for 5 minutes. Then he'd put his hands on and see if he could feel a difference. And he'd carry out the treatment then. And then he'd let me know. We were doing this over Facebook Messenger, not even talking to each other. We were just doing it. He'd say, I've looked at the horse. I'd say, I've zapped, I finished, blah, 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 whatever. And then he said, mix it up. Don't treat all the horses. Don't tell me which ones you haven't. Don't treat all the horses, and let me see if I can pick out the one you couldn't. You didn't. So we did 6 horses. I treated 1, 2, 3. Number 3, my hands nearly blew off the end of my arms. The energy was so intense. Number 4 I didn't. Number 5 I did. Number 6 I did. He reported back 1 he thought I did. He said, but I wasn't sure, I was getting into the feel of it. Number 2, he said, you definitely did. Number 3, he said the change was massive, and we hadn't spoken. He brought these things back to me before I said anything. Number 4, he said, you didn't treat. Number 5 you did. And number 6, he said, I'm pretty sure you did. It was 2:30 in the morning when I did number 6, so I might have been a bit sleepy by then. But that again, I've never done it since. But to me, that was the universe showing me, yeah, okay, will you believe it now? I know you're skeptical. Here you go. So that's how I work, is intention. And the sort of physical side of it, i.e. how we set the session up, is to decide a time that's suitable for both of us, be it, I'm going to treat a person or a horse. With a horse, the horse can be, I always ask for it to be in the place it's most comfortable. So it could be in its stable, it could be in its field with its field mates, whatever. It doesn't matter at all. And then we decide a time. I message about 5 minutes before to make sure everything's okay to go ahead. I then do the session, and as I said, now sometimes I have a notepad with me and I write any sensations I get down. sometimes they've got relevance, sometimes they haven't. Whatever. I'm sort of not attached to what's being written down. It's just interesting. And then I message when I finished, and we can have a discussion if need be. And it's the same for a person. I just say I'm going to start. Make sure the person's happy and sat down and doing whatever, do my session, and then we can talk after. So it's a very simple mechanism of carrying out the actual session. But yeah, distance. Fritz Albert Popp, he talked about this some years ago, and he said it was about resonance, about same vibration. You've got distance at action at a distance. I can't even remember. There's some quantum physics terms. I'd love to know, but all I know is, for me, that's how it works. I just have to put that intention out to the person or the horse, and it doesn't matter if they're next door house or New Zealand. It's the same process, and it's the same principle. So again, for a lot of people that can be quite challenging to take on board, but for me, my experience is my truth. And just because I haven't got a scientific explanation, I've been doing this now in this format alone for about over 10 years. And I remember when I sort of first learnt about this, the gist of the way I work now, and it was mentioned you could use distance. And I went, nah, that's not going to be effective, because that was a step too far for my brain then. And again, evolution. Here I am now. Most of my work, well, at the moment, all my work is distance, because you can't go and work with people. But it's just really interesting how things have evolved, and now all of my work is distance. And it's amazing. It's so wonderful to be able. I know I can reach anybody in the world and try and help them, and that's just so cool. So yes, so people also ask sometimes, do you have to believe in this, in the work I do for it to work? No. And the way to sort of show that is horses don't know who the hell I am or what I'm doing, and they get a reaction and they get better. They have benefit. I'm going to say they have benefit from the session. So no, you don't have to believe. You don't have to know. It's the energy. It's almost like, well, do you have to believe in rain to get wet? No, you don't. You walk outside and you get wet. The same sort of thing. The energy is there, and it's just information coming through that energy. And I'm just the catalyst or the facilitator that allows that and helps that happen. So that's sort of one question that gets asked quite often. Do you have to believe in it? Anyway, and the only thing I'd say on that, saying that, is that if somebody, the opposite of that is people ask, well, if somebody really doesn't believe, will that affect it? My only time I would say it really doesn't believe, start again. The only time I'd say someone not believing in it has an effect is if that person is in any way attached to the illness they have. And again, this is no judgment, it's no nothing. It's a case of some people having an illness brings them help and somebody looking after them. And so, they really psychologically don't want to get rid of them. I'm not a psychoanalyst or anything like that, but I think that's the only time you might find it. But people who don't believe in it just think, oh, it's a load of mumbo jumbo, but we're quite happy to sit there, no problem at all. If it's an active holding on to whatever condition, then I think that can have an effect. So because that's part of the imbalance within the body, but it's a conscious decision for that person. And so that might have the effect. Now, the last part of my work is what I call the awakening. When I do a point of balance session, it's very free form. You can have as many as you like over your lifetime. You might only ever need the one, or you may come back when something else, who knows. But there's no sort of limit in that respect. The awakening is a different thing. Now, if you imagine a Venn diagram with two circles, but they overlap in the middle, so you've got one bit in the middle, There is an element of bringing back into balance within the awakening, and there's an element of the awakening within a point of balance session. They're not mutually exclusive, but generally the session is used to, if somebody's got a health challenge and wants to come back into balance, or just, you don't have to be ill to have one. They're quite good fun to have one anyway, and there might be something underlying you don't know about, so that's the case with them. The awakening is a very considered decision for the person to have. It's very powerful. And what the awakening is, it's a once in a lifetime thing, and it's very structured in the way it's carried out. So instead of me working freeform around the body, I'm working on specific points and lines and places within the body, a lot of which correlate to acupuncture points and meridians. And the purpose behind the awakening is, in what it sort of says, it awakens your connection to all of the energy outside, to the universe, to the earth, where all the information is. It makes it easier to make decisions. It makes it easier to find your path. I know some people have had immediate massive changes where they get clarity about what they're looking for, what is good, what they need to do, what they need to cast aside, that's not important, but this is. So it's a very empowering process to go through. But I never dictate to anybody, now's your time. And the only suggestion I would make is that anybody considering having the awakening is to have a point of balance session first, if you haven't already had one, because in some ways it prepares the system for this connection, and it just facilitates the whole process. So there's nothing laid down, you've got to have a session, none of that. That's just my suggestion, that it might, it could be a good idea to have one. As I said, just to facilitate it all. And it's also about putting you in the best place possible before you have it. But it's definitely a personal decision, because I've had a few people, especially recently, asking about that. And my advice is always, whenever you are ready, I am here. But it might not be for another year or 2 years, whatever. Doesn't, I'm going nowhere. I intend to be doing this work when I'm 100. I hope you mark my words, because I've only got to sit here and do it. I've every intention of keeping doing this. So so for the awakening, as I said, it's about your connection, enhancing it so that you can reach the information that you need to find. Once in a lifetime, you decide if and when. Okay, so that's the sort of main gist of what I want to say. I'm just checking to see that I've gone over everything. I'm now going to look, because I don't even know, are there any? Oh, hello. Oh, hello, lovely people. Gosh, there's so many people here. Hello. Hello. Oh my gosh, how wonderful. Thank you for all those lovely messages. Yeah, so I'm just a bit of what do they call it, housekeeping, don't know. So my website is www.kathyprice.co.uk. A lot of the stuff I've spoken about here is on that website, on my website, and I'm really trying to push out some blogs. Haven't done them yet, and videos. I've got a YouTube channel which is connected to that as well, and I'm sort of trying to do more videos and stuff like that. And I'll also say, if you're interested, please go to my website and click subscribe, right? Subscribe, because if you do that, I'm not sending out a barrage of emails. It might be 1 or 2 a month, or I did send one out today because I was doing this, just to give a heads up, something like that. but I'm trying to formulate some subscriber offers so that if you subscribe you might get something different or cheaper or whatever. And also I did a free draw for a free session of Point of Balance, and it was so cool because my son was home over Christmas and I got him to draw a number out of a hat, and then I counted up, you know, whose number that was, and it was a lady in New York State who had subscribed ages ago, but hadn't, you know, I hadn't been in contact. And it was so cool because she said she actually had been thinking about having a session, so that was really nice. Yeah, so there's that. Any questions from here that you think about, please do get in touch. I'm on Messenger on this page, or Messenger on my own, you know, Kathy Price page, or, you know, email me or whatever, you know, anything like that. I'm happy to answer. You might have guessed that I quite like my subject. It is actually my passion, this. I mean, it's so amazing to be able to do something you love, that's something that's so cool, and help people and help horses. I mean, you know, who wouldn't like to do that? So, you know, I don't mind talking about it for hours actually, or answering questions. The next thing is there's something, this is quite a big project. A number of people have actually asked about me teaching this. And to begin with, I was very much, oh my God, no, I can't do it. How do I teach this? How would I teach this? Because I kept thinking, well, it's me. How can I teach someone to be me with all my, you know, my life's experiences and what I've been through and what I've learned. But then I started to think, no, there's a series of concepts that is behind this work. And then if anybody chose to step into that, they become their own work, and they can call it what they like. They don't have to call it Point of Balance. So that's very strong in me at the moment, that I think that's what's going to happen, that I'm not sure how it's going to work or get it formulated, but that is going to happen, I think. So again, if any of you would be interested in learning how to do this, just drop me a line. It'd just be interesting to know, you know, how many, if the people are out there. I'm probably going to do it anyway. You know, I'm not going to do it dependent on what interest there is, because they always say the best way to know a subject is to teach it. So, you know, double whammy, I can learn my subject better, and if anybody's wanting it, I can actually teach it. And one day, probably not this year, but there will be a book. It's really interesting because I take little Flossie, my dog, for a walk every morning. I do look after Teasel first, and then we go walking, and it's obviously at this time of year it's quite often pitch black, and it's always on those walks in the morning I get all the information every time. And it's happened for years now, really. And I remember not recently I was walking along, and all of this information came to me about, you know, how to do chapters and what subjects and how I'd introduce the stuff. By the time I get home, I've forgotten it. That's why I'm doing audios now, because as soon as I have that information, I've got to record it, because it's almost like a dream that when you get back into a different situation, information's gone. I have learnt my lesson. Thank God for audio recording on your phone. But yeah, I think that is something that I'll be stepping into. And then also, when hopefully before too long life becomes safe again to mix and to see people, I'm love to go out and do talks. And so, you know, go to a different area and do a talk to anybody that wants a session, any horses that, you know, might want a session. I think I'll be setting that up, but obviously that's way in the future when we all know it's safe to do so again. So I just thought, hang on, sorry, there looks like there might be a, oh, sorry, Sabine has just said, I just had that thought when you started to talk about teaching. Thank you. Yeah, so as I said, any questions that come up afterwards while you're thinking about this, you know, something settles down and you say, oh, what about that? Fire away, I'm here. I really just want to say thank you all so much. I hope this has made a bit more sense than my last one, because that was an absolute car crash. I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, hopefully this one's a bit better. And I will keep doing them, you know, when a subject comes to me that I feel, or just to say hello. And if people, you know, want me to do another one, I'm very happy to do it. So sending you all lots of love. Thank you very much for being here, and hopefully see you next time. But you know where I am. You know how to get in contact with me. Any questions, far away. And obviously, if you'd like a session, you, your horse, whatever, I'm here. Thank you, and good night.